How you been? Yeah, just hanging in there.
If we could have a roll call?
Councilmember San Antonio?
Present.
Councilmember Schaefer?
Here.
Councilmember O'Hara?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Lyons?
Here.
And Mayor Haylers.
Here.
Record will show that all members of the city council are present this evening, this afternoon.
Okay. And tonight for this special meeting, we have one agenda item. It is discussion and direction on the city fiscal year 2025-2026 operating and capital improvement budgets. And the contact person is Director of Finance, City Treasurer Gallup. And with that, we'll start with a staff report. Is Swami's on this list? Or
Yes,
is it
the
already?
bottom, second from the bottom.
MM.
Oh, there it is. Thank you.
So my question on those, on the staircases, are we talking safety issue or are we talking?
What is, what, somehow we're playing a tape of a past meeting. So either Jim has perfected his ventriloquism act beyond belief. Yeah. That's a first for me. It's like, Jim, I did not see your lips move one iota. I'm impressed. I think you have another career. So with that, I think now we have a staff report without the video.
All right. Thank you, Honorable Mayor, Deputy Mayor, council members, members of the public. Welcome to the fiscal year 2025-26 Operating and Capital Budget Workshop number 2. Before I begin, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Tom Gallup, Finance Director, and with me is our Director of Engineering, Jill Bankston, and our Finance Manager, Budget Officer, Kelly Sanderson. Also attending are directors and staff from each department who are available to answer questions. This is the second of 2 scheduled budget workshops intended to provide feedback and direction before introducing the fiscal year 25-26 operating and capital budget. During this workshop, staff will be presenting the City Council goals for 2025 and their alignment with projects for consideration. We will also recap information requested and questions asked during the first workshop, the estimated amount available for appropriation at that time, and the operating budget request presented by staff for consideration. The focus of this workshop will be the capital budget. Staff will present the latest list of engineering capital projects by status, also known as the donut chart, and present capital project requests for council consideration. City Manager Jennifer Campbell will now discuss the City Council's goals for 2025.
Thank you, Director Gallup. Good afternoon, Mayor, members of Council. On April 9th, we ended up finalizing the focus areas, goals, and objectives for City Council for the upcoming year. So I just wanted to go over and focus on the 9 goals that City Council had agreed on. The first is to enhance community confidence through sheriff, fire, and city services. Number 2, to maintain and improve critical city services and infrastructure. 3, safely and efficiently move people throughout the city in a timely manner. Expand the Habitat Stewardship Program, number 4. Number 5, Climate Action Plan. Number 6, work with community organizations to support projects and programs that preserve community character. Number 7, support our businesses and organizations. Number 8, review and update policies, plans, and elements with a goal of implementing a legally defensible, responsible development. And number 9, advocate for statewide and regional housing policy reforms. So throughout those focus areas, goals, and objectives, we have referenced some of those and some of the items tonight, and those are actually later on in the presentation, but just wanted to focus on those goals from City Council and to let the public know of those as well. And we also did publish the 2025 strategic plan objectives with this item as well. So thank you very much. I'll turn it back over to Director Gallup.
Thank you very much. We will now recap what was discussed and presented at workshop number 1. During the first workshop, information was requested regarding the city's borrowing capacity and fees, both development impact fees and permitting fees. As mentioned, based on an analysis, the city could borrow up to $13.1 million to maintain and still maintain its existing AAA rating, which would add up to $750,000 in annual debt service per year. We are finalizing our study on development impact fees, otherwise known as mitigation fees, and we're targeting the June 18th agenda to present those to City Council. Lastly, there was inquiry regarding the status of development permitting fees. Every year, we return to the City Council with a consumer price index adjustment effective the following fiscal year. And for next fiscal year, we are including a 3.1% CPI effective July 1st, 2025. We're also targeting the June 18th City Council agenda to present that as well. We are issuing an RFP for a new fee study planned for fiscal year 25-26 and present cost recovery options to the City Council when that fee study, which includes existing costs, is finalized. At the March 26th workshop, staff estimated that $8.5 million would be available for appropriation for capital projects. This includes $6.5 million expected unassigned fund balance at the end of this year, in addition to an estimated $2 million available in next year's operating budget. The 6.5 unassigned projected fund balance includes the 6.9 mid-year balance that was reported on February 26, 2025, and all resolutions that included budget appropriations adopted through March 17, 2025. Additionally, we are anticipating $400,000 in a Caltrans HSIP grant match before the end of this current fiscal year, which arrives at $6.5 million unassigned at the end of fiscal year 24-25. What this excludes, though, however, is $350,000 in a grant match from the city should Sandag award grants for the development of Trail 82 and the La Costa Ped Path project. However, staff identified that debt service payments of approximately $330,000 for the purchase of open space at the corner of La Costa Avenue and North Course Highway 101 could be made from parkland acquisition fees should the council decide to designate that location a park site, which would result in a savings to the general fund and could provide most of that $350,000 grant match. Additionally, the timing of the FEMA reimbursement for the Lake Drive sinkhole is not yet known, but once received, this will increase the unassigned fund balance and most likely be available for appropriation before or at mid-year of fiscal year 25-26. Staff is expecting an additional $2 million for transfers out to capital projects from the preliminary fiscal year 25-26 operating budget. Staff is projecting revenue to exceed expenditures by $8.2 million. From this amount, operating transfers out to the city's internal service funds reduce this amount by $2.4 million, and transfers for debt service payments further reduce the excess by $5.5 million. A gas tax transfer and other transfers into the operating budget add 1.7 million to the balance, leaving 2 million available for fiscal year 25-26. The calculation on this slide does not include capital transfers out, since today's workshop will provide direction on what projects the City Council intends to fund. This slide presents the most recent estimated amount available for appropriation. Staff would like to note one unanticipated event occurred after the March 26th workshop, which presented the need for an off-cycle appropriation of an estimated 1 million for emergency repairs to the D Street Beach access staircase. This will reduce the amount available for appropriation from the 8.5 million originally presented in Workshop 1 to approximately 7.5 million. The addition of a deputy fire marshal was discussed at the last workshop and included in the operating budget, which will replace an existing FTE in the organization, resulting in no increase to the FTE count. I would like to highlight an additional request since the last workshop for a senior management analyst in the Wastewater Collection Fund 611. This new FTE would not be funded from the general fund. Instead, it would be funded entirely by the Cardiff Sanitary Division, Encinitas Sanitary Division, and the San Diego Water District Enterprise Funds. Currently, the Public Works Department's senior management analyst is shared among multiple divisions, with 25% of their time dedicated to the Utilities Department, which is not sufficient. The new position will support both the Wastewater Division and the Water District to provide needed analytical and administrative support to all enterprises. Not included in the proposed operating budget are staff recommendations and administrative items for consideration totaling $1 million for an additional discretionary payment to the CalPERS retirement system on top of its annual required payment to further reduce the city's unfunded pension liability, and $500,000 to maintain a minimum unassigned fund balance next year for any unanticipated off-cycle requests or emergencies. Staff is recommending a $500,000 payment to CalPERS this year as it prepares a pension policy and receives the latest annual valuation report from CalPERS, which will be released July 2025, and can leverage software forecasting tools internally rather than relying on a consultant. At the previous workshop, council expressed an interest in including the cost of 2 additional sheriff's deputies and drainage and beach sand replenishment consultants in the operating budget. The cost of these are estimated to be $1.2 million, which includes the additional increase to the city's operating reserve requirement, which is factored in. An extra $203,000 would be added to our reserve. This slide lists the initiatives that are included in the proposed operating budget, many of which have other funding sources besides the general fund. Since the general fund has been the focus of the last workshop, we wanted to highlight some of these initiatives that include the Buena Creek Navigation Center, the replacement of meeting broadcast equipment and contracts to broadcast meetings that is collected from cable franchise revenue, waste disposal, recycling, household hazardous waste services, the federal community development block grants, emergency management services and advanced life support services, equipment and training for the fire department, and also a newly established internal service fund for shared software and equipment replacement. Sorry. Once again, I will hand the presentation off to City Manager Campbell, who will discuss our capital improvement program.
Thank you, Director Gallup. And I also have Director Bankston here for assistance. So what we wanted to show was some of the capital improvement programs that we have and projects that are not general fund related. We wanted to show exactly how much work the city is doing in the different areas. So we just wanted to highlight a couple. One is our 2025-26 annual overlay and pavement rehab, which is our street paving that affects our PCI. And we have some state taxes, HUDA and SB1, and some Transnet that helps fund that. We have several sand projects, our beach habitat study, coastal storm drain reduction, dune restoration project, and our sand compatibility opportunistic use program. So we do get some different funding for that. That helps keep our beaches in great shape. Next up, most of these are enterprise fund, and this is some sewer rehab, plant improvements, collection system rehab, Encina plant improvements. So just wanted to show you, this is on the enterprise fund, but this is basically dealing mostly with our wastewater. We also have our PAC Pines, which is affordable housing. That's our maintenance schedule. So these are definitely funded from different and restricted sources, and those are not general fund. But it does showcase many of the projects the city does continue to work on that we also definitely take staff time and resources to make our community better. So thank you.
So next up, we have our donut chart. So we post every year our final donut chart. It's available online. So the draft that was attached to this item tonight is basically last year's donut chart minus the 6 projects that we've already completed, minus the 5 projects that are in construction now and will be completed before the end of the fiscal year. We've updated the cost estimates for another year. And added some of the projects that were brought up during workshop number 1 and made some of the edits that were requested, such as breaking out the safety and mobility improvements in the vicinity of housing element sites and the Leucadia drainage sites. So at the very bottom, on the last year's, there's an additional table for annual projects. We don't know yet what this council is going to fund, so that doesn't show up yet on the current version that was attached this year. But once you guys make those decisions, then when we bring back with the introduction of the budget next month, we'll have those added on there. So as you look through the donut chart, you'll see bold. All that is the new items. So anything in bold is brand new. So this is, again, just a status. It's not a prioritization. So at the top are projects that are currently in construction or fully funded for construction. If you see a full circle, that means that that phase is complete. We show 3 phases: a study or initial evaluation, design, and then construction. If you see a green donut, that means that it's fully funded but not complete yet. If you see a half red square, that means it's partially funded. And if you see a full red square, that means it's unfunded. So happy to hear any feedback or any additional additions or subtractions you'd like to see from the donut chart.
Anything else? Does that conclude staff report or? No. Okay, keep.
Okay, so obviously we'll get through the rest of the report and then we can definitely take time for comments, questions, and everything else. So next up is just other projects for consideration. So during workshop 1, we definitely heard some items of interest from City Council, so we've put those on. We've also put on some of the CIPs that have been reoccurring that we've done year after year that help to make the city run better. So I just wanted to go over some of those. The first one's the ADA curb ramp project. That helps with our transition plan. So really that is something that we need to do to stay in compliance with ADA. So that's definitely a recommendation from staff. We have beach stair access refurbishment, Swami's. You will notice that that amount has changed. During the first workshop, we actually had $550, but with the current estimate that came in for the D Street staircase repair, we have added more money to that. We do want to make sure that we have enough, as that is another critical access point for one of our beloved beaches here in Encinitas. We have our Encinitas Habitat Stewardship Program, which goes along with Goal 4 of the plan that we have from Council. General mobility improvements, this is a big one. We usually do about $300,000, and this is what helps us with different mobility improvements. Sometimes they're requests that we get from residents, crosswalks, things like that. So it just helps us basically stay pretty nimble and flexible when we have different requests or we feel that there's a need to make our traffic safety better with different signage or maybe an RFB. That's why we have that money. That's what it's been used for. Next up, we have the park improvements projects. This is actually cell tower lease money that comes from the cell towers that are located at our park and rec facilities. And that was basically allotted to the department by City Council by resolution many years ago. So that just helps with playground improvements and things like that. Next, we have Safe Routes to School, and that's an annual one that we used to always fund, and that was $200,000. That, again, helps with maybe a missing sidewalk or different routes or crosswalks or stop signs that help kids get to school. New one is a storm drain master plan, so this would be a master plan for all of our storm drains, and it's a 50% cost split with another federal organization that will help. We have our storm drain annual repair, and this is to repair any storm drains that do end up causing sinkholes and things like that around the city. Some of the new ones that we heard, the Beach Street Open Space Public Recreation Trail, that goes along with Objective 4.1. Point B, that was $100,000. We have bridge inspections, so we have probably about 17 bridges, and when I say that, they're not the big highway bridges that we think of like on Locadia. We have a lot of small different bridges in many of our facilities. A lot of them are in parks. So this again goes with 2.3 point C, and that would be to inspect those. We have the Climate Action Plan Economic Impact Limitations Analysis. This is 5.3 point A, and this is basically to look at our climate action plan and to really look at some of the cost benefit that would go along with some of the items that we are proposing in the Climate Action Plan. I will let you know we did get news that apparently Development Services has found a funding source. So that was great. I just got that late news 100. So it looks like we can fund that from money that we already have in a different source. But I do want to let you know that that was on the list. We have corrugated metal pipe storm drain lining. So this is proactive. This is lining our corrugated metal pipes before they fail. And again, that makes them last many, many more years. So that's really more of a preventative. And that goes along with 2.3 point A. We have our Economic Development Strategic Plan, which is 7.1 point B, and that would help guide the city along with the Business Commission that the council would like to form on where the city needs to go with some of our economic development. We have the Encinitas Boulevard and I-5 Adaptive Signal Timing Pilot. That's 3.1 point F. We are looking at possibly funding some of that if it was approved by City Council with some traffic mitigation fees. So we might be able to offset that with some restricted funds that would free up general funds. Next, we have the Facilities Condition Assessment. We're actually looking to award that. That money's in the facility fund, but that goes along with 2.1 point B. We have a facilities master plan, which is 2.4 point B, and that's at 100. We have Fire Station 1, the temporary one at Packview. It looks like we are taking most of the money from our facilities fund. However, we do need some additional funding, and that goes with 1.3 point A. So we're definitely, we would really need to move that forward. We know that our firefighters are bunked up in Fire Station 3, so we are definitely looking as a staff recommendation for that amount. We have a historic context statement with historic districts, which goes along with goal 6.1. We have on here, we have talked about making L7 a park, so if we do want to do that, we do want to make that a CIP with direction from council. And the good news on that is we do have park mitigation and acquisition fees that we can use to design and develop that into a park. We have the Locadia Boulevard and I-5 Bridge Rail Repair, and we've actually had a citizen come in and show us some pictures of that falling apart, so that's what that is. We have additional money for our pavement rehabilitation. And again, this helps with the streets and the PCI. We have resource management element update. This is goal 8. We have already started that. Council already has awarded a contract for a consultant to work on this. This is actually state mandated. So what we did last year was $250,000 was funded to begin it. We do need $250 additional to finish that. It was a $500,000 project, but needed to be split into 2 fiscal years. We also have the Vulcan Avenue DG Ped Path, which is Locadia Boulevard to La Costa. So this would be for design only, and this goes along with objective 3.2 point B. So that was some of the things that we heard from council. Those were some of the items, too, that staff feels that we still think is important so that we can conduct city business. So we will discuss that later with our budget calculator that we're proposing. So thank you.
Thank you. In terms of the next steps in the budget cycle, this afternoon, we will receive direction on items and amounts to include in the budget. On May 14th, we will introduce the fiscal year 2025-26 operating and capital budget that incorporates direction we received today. And on June 11th, we anticipate adopting the fiscal year 2025-26 operating and capital budget. With that, I think at this stage, present the calculator, or do we open the floor for public?
Why don't we do questions of clarification first?
Got it.
If anybody's got them, I've got them. If you
Well,
don't.
just my first one, just that list that we just went through, I just did a quick calculation. Am I correct that that's $6 million worth of other considerations? All the stuff that we just listed? What was that total? It's like 6.
Yeah, that does exceed the available, and I think we can transition to our budget calculator, which will give us an idea of that. So, yeah, that would, everything included that we discussed would be 8.9 million, which exceeds the 7.5, so.
So there's really no discretion in it left.
Yeah,
If we accept everything.
Of course,
Yes.
of course, I get it. I'm just saying there's a lot there.
Yeah. And how many do we have? 11. Okay. So if we could do questions of clarification, then we'll do public speaking, and then we can come back and go to deliberation. Questions of clarification.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a couple questions about the presentation itself. To the city manager, the first question, you cited 3.1A for the La Costa Ped Path. Is that different from 3.2B, which I have as grant funding, but is this separate? Because I don't see that listed in 3.2 or 3.1 on here, and I want to make sure I'm looking in the right spot. I'm sure it was just a typo of some sort, or I misheard you.
Let me go ahead and look. So we're referring to, because I know La Costa is not, so are you talking about the Vulcan Avenue DG Ped Path?
I'm sorry, you spoke, you're talking about the Vulcan DG.
Sure.
path.
So under 3.2, I'm looking at B. It says seek grant funding for the construction of La Costa Ped Path Trail 82 and an interim ADA compliant design for Vulcan Ped Path.
Okay, so that's 3.2B, okay, perfect.
Yes,
I
thank
think
you.
You'd said 3.1, and I just wanted to make sure I was looking at the right things.
Thank
So
you.
So that funding, right, then that 175 is the correct amount then? In
Yes, it
accordance-
is, for the design only.
okay. Perfect. And that is the temporary path we discussed.
Exactly.
Okay. The, in the areas where we looked at some of the fees, I'll hold off on that question. I'll wait till we're there.
Okay.
Let's go ahead.
Anything else?
I'll yield. That was actually just clarification.
Deputy Mayor Lyons.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to let people know that I'm here for the budget today only, and I'm still in the middle of personal family leave. But the budget is really time-sensitive, so looking forward to understanding what's already in here and being able to provide some comments so that I'm not too late in getting my constituents' concerns considered here. So just wanted to preface with that. And I do want to apologize if some of my questions are a little bit, we're going back and explaining something. It's just because I haven't been connected for a couple weeks now. So my first question has to do with the corrugated metal pipelining project. And it's because it's new, and it's new to me too. Do we have pipe facilities report that this budget is based on? It's a pretty big number, so Jill, could you provide some
So we have some preliminary data from Public Works, and engineering is kind of taking that data and doing some additional truthing and some additional investigation. But that was based off of a potential plan to line the worst pipes that we know about over a 5-year time period to get us through so that we have our pipes all in fair condition.
Is the $1 million, let me make sure I've got it right, is the $1 million budget here, estimate, is that for 5 years, or what do you?
It would be, so our approximate cost was about $5 million, so $1 million a year for 5 years would get us in much better shape.
Understood. Okay, thank you. I think my other questions will be later. Thank you.
Okay, I'll hop in here. Going back to, I guess they're not sheet numbers on here, but would have been about sheet 5, where you've got the 400,000 Caltrans HISP grant. It's the, let's see. Yep, that one. What's the difference between the includes 400K but excludes the 350K? Are those different? Those aren't worth the same HSIP submissions?
So the 400K is for the HSIP grant. The 350 or the 330 you see down below is for the Sandag SGIP.
Oh, SGIP, okay. And what projects are the HSIP?
Those are the, there's 4. It includes the South 101 PED crossing by Solana Beach. It includes the sidewalk on the east side of the 101. It includes the Encinitas Boulevard bike lane, protected bike lane, and the Santa Fe and El Camino Real protected intersection. So we'll be bringing forward an item for council consideration later for you guys to decide if we want to move forward with those projects.
And in this case, is this the match required if we win?
So we've already won them. Now council gets to decide if we move forward with the projects as proposed, or if we make some changes, or if we decide we don't want to move forward with those projects. So we'll bring forward an action later.
Okay. And then down on the 350, that's only if we win. We submitted for them, but we may or may not win, depending on, okay.
That's correct.
So that 350 may get freed up, although our opportunity to use the 303 out of which fund was it? It may avoid impacting the, all but 20,000 impacting the general fund. Did I understand that correctly?
Yeah, parkland acquisition fee, should the open space be designated as park.
Okay. And hang on while I'm writing notes here. Wait. Oh, I see. Okay. Great. So moving on to the next page. With the operating transfers net out, the 2.4 million, what are those transfers?
Those are transfers to our self-insurance fund, several of our internal service funds. Some are subsidies to our 2 of our lighting and landscape districts that require a subsidy. Trying to think some of the most significant would be self-insurance, but we also have vehicle replacement, apparatus replacement.
And so I wondered if vehicle replacement was in there. How much into the vehicle replacement? Because like last year was $1 million or $2 million.
Yeah, I
So
think
it's real money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We might, I think we were, we exceeded I think there's a healthy fund balance, so I don't think we're planning on a vehicle replacement transfer this fiscal year. No, we're looking at the actual replacement schedule. It's time to kind of evaluate conditions and the policy itself. So I know Public Works will be bringing a policy to council on vehicle replacement.
And tonight, we've got an item on the agenda about fire safety and all, and one of the potential recommendations, which has budget impacts, would be the addition of or transference of a engine type 1 to the Fire Station 6. Would would purchasing a new Type 1 engine come out of this vehicle replacement fund? Or is this strictly for an existing asset that we replace on a ongoing basis?
Yeah, it's for planned replacement of existing assets, and fire apparatus has its own replacement fund and schedule. And typically, those are leased, so.
Okay, so the fund that are we transferring anything out of the general fund into the fire vehicle replacement fund, or is that funded sufficiently at
That's
this
funded
point?
sufficiently. I think the assumption was that there would be a purchase made, but instead, the city decided to lease the apparatus, the last apparatus, so.
Okay, cool. Let's see, several pages further, I guess page 11. Oh, I see page numbers there, good. First question is about the unassigned fund balance target. I know in past years, that's been as high as 2 million. We dropped it to 1 million. I know we're tightening screws here and there and getting closer, so, so I just wanted to make sure you agree that the past history is we would go into the beginning of the year with a 2 million unassigned. This is, and I think 1 year we did 1 million, which we quickly rebuilt to 2 million, depending on what flows in and out, how revenues exceed expenses, et cetera. So I'm seeing nodding yes, so you have any comment there about how comfortable are you with the 500K?
Yeah, I think in looking at, past history, we looked at that, and also the traditional carryover that we find ourselves in at the end of the fiscal year usually will replenish that fund balance. So we're looking at that, we're projecting that, but we're recommending a minimum of 500,000. I don't know if. Just
And we usually don't have a FEMA reimbursement that's gone mostly all the way through the 1 to 2 year check boxes and is on the precipice of, 2.6 million or, so it would replenish this very quickly.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
good.
correct. That was one of the considerations for that.
Let's see. On the next, on the page, other initiatives, page 12, bottom of the page, shared software agreements and equipment replacement. The 632 Technology Fund with 2.5 million, wow, which is great. Where did those funds come from? That's a lot of money there, which is wonderful.
So this is an internal service fund that receives funding from multiple sources. In the past, there was about $200,000 a year that used to go out into a work project and capital funds, and now we're moving it into this internal service fund to be able to have visibility into new accounting requirements related to software leases. So some of it, a portion comes from the general fund, another portion comes from the wastewater funds, and also San Dieguito Water District.
Can you give a rough cut on what portion comes from general fund?
Oh, there you go.
Hi.
I would have to look it up.
Yes. So 2% comes from the ESD and CSD fund for wastewater technology. 10% comes from the San Dieguito Water District. And then we also receive a portion of money for supporting the San Elijo Joint Powers Authority. And all of your subscription-based hardware and software is in this fund per new GASB requirements.
Okay, so this is not a fund sitting there. This is a fund that will consume all 2.5 million by the end of the year.
Yes,
Okay.
this supports everything from the network to the software that's used. It also supports our public safety, disaster recovery, cybersecurity.
Like, we buy a lot from Tyler Technologies as our ERP. Is that here?
Yes, that's
Okay,
in there.
great. So I didn't know whether or not it was 2.5 million that was in a fund looking for a place to go.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's always worth checking, guys. If you don't ask the question now, you won't know. And then I think I'm getting to the almost the, but yeah, I think this is my last question. On page 14, the pavement, the 4.5 million, I believe that is a split between actual pavement work and construction management, roughly 2/3, 1/3, 1/4, 3/4. Can you characterize how much is actually going for pavement?
Usually we retain about between 15 and 18% is the amount of our construction management.
Okay. And then if we were to add money to that, it doesn't take another 15, 18% to go into construction management. We actually get more of it going into pavement, is what you've told me in the past. Can you characterize what the incremental would be?
Yeah, so the
Okay.
larger your project, the smaller your percentages. So if, 4.5 million is 18, if we have 5 million or 5.5, then it might be 16 or 15. So
Okay.
you get economies of scale.
So more of the incremental million, if that's the number, would go to pavement, where the rubber meets the road. I'm sorry, I had to go there.
You got it.
Okay, thank you. And that, any other, I got Councilmember O'Hara with questions. I'll yield.
I just had a quick question, again, clarification question that I couldn't find before, and can you just cover the new senior management analyst position? Is that a replacement position? Is it a new position? I'm sure you said it, and I didn't catch it, just seeing my notes over here.
Esam's coming up to tell you.
Hello, I'm Isam Harish, Director of Utilities. This position is for providing administrative services to the wastewater side of the house. Currently, these services are provided by the Public Works Senior Management Analyst. This position will also provide administrative services, billing, rate studies, and customer service, in addition to support our operation crews. That's 50% of that position. The other 50% will provide San Diego Water District with support, specifically with the new projects that we are going to be having next year, including the AMI is Advanced Metering Infrastructure, which will require a lot of reporting, specifically that we are trying to get grants for each and every phase of that project. And this is an 8 to 10 year project with an $8 to $10 million funds that are required.
Thanks for clarifying. Appreciate it.
Okay. Looks like I don't have any other questions, so let's go to public comment. I think are we still at 11?
Still at 11.
Okay, 3 minutes each.
All righty. First three speakers.
Michael Glenn, Carol Knight, and then Bernadette Dillon. Yes. come on up.
Make sure this is on. Great. Dear Honorable Mayor and esteemed Encinitas City Council members, my name is Michael Glenn, board member of the Encinitas Chamber of Commerce, chair of the Tourism Committee, co-chair of the Business and Economic Development Committee, and a 30-year resident. I'm here today to discuss the importance of tax revenue generated by visitors to our city. As you know, over 100 years ago, Encinitas was an agricultural town. With the popularity of the automobile in the 1950s, visitors discovered our beautiful city, and a large portion of our businesses transitioned to a tourism economy to capture this market. This positively impacted our city by supporting the health of local businesses, generating tax revenue for infrastructure, public safety, etc., and enhancing the quality of life for our residents. Today, while a vast majority of cities in California, and most all of them in Southern California, have developed plans to capture and sustain tourism revenue, Encinitas, unfortunately, is late to the game when it comes to dealing with arguably our largest industry, tourism. These other cities saw the advantages and wanted to capture the sales tax revenue and to control the narrative of what kind of city they were perceived as. We've seen similar cities to Encinitas, like Oceanside and Dana Point, have an aggressive strategy to capture tax revenue to help fund their infrastructure initiatives. Newport Beach in particular stated in the recent Destination Marketing Organization report that other coastal cities are a threat to their tax revenue and are aggressively working to take back market share. The report also stated, if you took the tourism industry away to keep their government services flowing at the same levels, it would cost every household over $1,000 in additional taxes per year. Also, to keep their economy churning at the same levels, it will cost every household an additional $43,000 in local spending per year. The Greater Palm Springs area also sees similar impacts. Each household will need to be taxed an additional $5,500 to replace the visitor-generated taxes received by local governments. These cities understand that if you don't have a strategy for tourism, the negative economic and social impacts will be a detriment to its businesses and residents. Local Encinitas business leaders agree. Joseph Romaglia, owner of Broad City Doco, Josh Hansen of Hansen Surfboards, Jason Peasley of the Cottage Restaurant, Nikki Harth, owner of Coffee Coffee, the Surf House, and Leucadia 101 president, and Mohammed Ghazizadeh, director of sales and marketing of the Alila Resort, asked that the city invest in tourism through Visit Encinitas to keep pace with neighboring cities and support the local economy and its residents. There seems to be a misconception, though, about what tourism marketing is about. It's not about bringing in more visitors than we can handle. Instead, our goal is a business development plan that is threefold. Have a strategy to support local businesses in the slow months, prevent overcrowding in the busy months, and ask visitors that they respect Encinitas, and make sure our tax revenue is a consistent, reliable source for all of our needs. To accomplish this, we need your help. That is why Visit Encinitas is asking for $65,000 to help Encinitas be competitive for other cities and secure our tax revenue. Thank you for your consideration.
Carol Knight. Carol will be followed by Bernadette Dillon, Sherry Yardley, and then Rochelle Collier.
Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor and Encinitas City Council. I'm Carol Knight, Director of Visit Encinitas. As you may know, we launched Visit Encinitas in June of last year. It has quickly become the go-to resource for both visitors and residents seeking what to do, where to shop, where to stay, and where to dine in Encinitas. With travel-related spending in San Diego County at more than $16 billion, state and local tax revenue upwards of $1.3 billion, and tourism-related employment at more than 100,000, tourism as a driver of economic vitality cannot be ignored. So I urge the council to consider the importance of continued and sustained support for tourism as a driver of our local economy. As you have read in my letter, during the past 10 months, we've laid a strong foundation. I'd like to reiterate a few accomplishments. We established a tourism advisory board with representation from hospitality-related industries, including retail, restaurants, cultural arts, and hotels, across all 5 Encinitas communities. We launched a public relations campaign efforts highlighting all 5 communities, which has led to increased media exposure for the city, its attractions, and businesses throughout the year, not just during the summer. We enhanced our marketing reach through growing social media campaigns, including insiders' guides, videos, and interviews, showcasing our community's characters. We amplified the work of our partners at 101 Main Street organizations, our local businesses, venues, and community groups. We produced the Hello Encinitas video series, which highlights the best of what our city has to offer. We are rolling out a Respect Encinitas campaign to encourage responsible tourism and protect our beaches, trails, and neighborhoods. We host pop-up events along the 101 and at our area attractions, and we partner with Visit California and San Diego Tourism Authority. These initiatives are more than just promotional. They support the economic vitality of Encinitas by bringing in visitors from both near and far who help keep our local businesses alive and thriving, especially during the slower seasons. To sustain and build upon this momentum, Visit Encinitas asked for this funding of $65,000. With this continued funding, we can build on the strong foundation we created the past year. We can continue our PR. We can further our marketing reach through targeted social media campaigns and regional advertising. We continue to staff pop-ups along 101, the El Camino Real corridor, and at area attractions. We can begin to gather visitor and spending data to share with the city, our tourism partners, and local businesses, and capitalize on Visit California and SDTA as we approach the 28 Olympics and the World Cup. I urge you to continue to invest in real and sustained funding of tourism as a vital part of our city's economic strategy. With your support, we can ensure Encinitas remains a vibrant, welcoming, and competitive destination for years to come. Thank you for your continued dedication to our community.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. I'm asking you to please include in the budget a grant for removing the planter boxes and backup stalls. Keep the protected bike lanes. There are special grants available. If you remember the Del Mar Bridge that went to nowhere, they use the grants to fix that and make it a connection point. The planter boxes can be moved to the space of this next to the Santa Fe Drive and the I-5 and stretch all the way to Requesa. More room for percolating water. 4 cars have ended up in the planter boxes so far. The first planter box next to Santa Fe and McKinnon has an unprotected drop-off that could cause seriously hurt a bicyclist or pedestrian who may need to jump out of the way. There are other ways to slow down traffic. Giant speed bumps like the ones on the 101, giant dips like the one on Melba and Belore. Driving on Santa Fe Drive has become extremely dangerous for those in the backup stalls that are trying to join traffic who are hidden by larger parked cars like SUVs, buses, and delivery trucks. They cannot see the oncoming traffic and they have to jump out in front. By the time they get out, they're in the middle of traffic, and we could have a lot of accidents resulting from that. We have endangered the lives of the people who live on the side streets south of Santa Fe Drive. These streets have now become the thoroughfares, like Kathy Lane, no sidewalk, no bike lanes. Ocean Crest Drive, no sidewalk, no bike lanes. Moonavar Lane has a partial sidewalk but no bike lane, and Windsor Road has a partial sidewalk and partial bike lane. These are now being used as the main arteries to avoid the traffic on Santa Fe Drive. Please change it back. Please leave the bike all the way to El Camino Real, but take out those planter boxes and please take out the backup stalls. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor and distinguished council members. I'm Sherry Yardley. I forgot who it was. I'm Sherry Yardley with the Encinitas Chamber of Commerce and Visit Encinitas. First off, I would like to thank you for your ongoing partnership and support. We truly value working together to make Encinitas a stronger, more connected, and more vibrant community. As you have read in the letter I submitted yesterday, we are asking for a little more investment this year. 85 for the Chamber and 65 for Visit Encinitas, so we really can grow the impact that we're already making in our community. With that funding, we can do things like the following. Support your 2025 goals, like streamlining the business permit process, hosting outreach workshops, and expanding the business visit program. Help with the creation of the Business Commission and Economic Development Strategic Plan. Be a partner in exploring Encinitas as an official California cultural district, and support local arts and historic initiatives. Through Visit Encinitas, we can ramp up tourism marketing to attract the right visitors and help make those dollars go right back into our community, especially through better coordination on short-term rental and business registration efforts, as well as the many other things mentioned in Carol Knight and Michael Glenn's letters to the council for this workshop. At the end of the day, we're here to support you, the city, our incredible businesses, and the residents of Encinitas. Let's keep building something amazing together. Thank you.
Next speaker is Rochelle Collier, followed by Christine Schindler, Ellen Burr, and then Teresa Beauchamp.
Hello, Mayor and City Council, and thank you, Joy, for coming tonight. Thank you very much. I've been to 2 of these budget things before, and frankly, it's just not my thing, but I started doing this because I'm noticing that Leucadia kept getting taken out of the budget. So I was very happy to see that the railroad crossing and the quiet zone are on the list. And what I really almost can't believe is that we're going to seek grant funding for the Leucadia pedestrian path. And I really appreciate that. Anyway, the next thing is goal number 6, affordable housing. Please, let's work on those RENA numbers. We absolutely need affordable housing. We don't need massive apartment buildings with above market rate apartments then they kind of just squeeze in little affordable housing that is not enough. So let's get local control. I really like that word. And I just want to tell you, I appreciate the time you have to put into this because, like I said, it's not my thing. I can't imagine having to do this. So thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. So Christine Schindler, East Encinitas. Yeah, I want to echo what Rochelle said. Deputy Mayor Joy, it's wonderful to have you back for the second workshop. And I want to appreciate all the efforts made by staff. I can imagine that this budget process, the donut chart alone, takes a lot of time and effort. So kudos to Jill and all others involved. So looking at this chart, you know me. I ride a bike. I want other people to ride a bike. I want people to have mobility choices. And it's not just about us that want to ride and walk and use transit. It actually helps everybody who drives a car if there are less people driving a car all the time. So when I look at this chart, it's kind of like, wow, who do you love more? Do you love streets? Do you love fire safety? Do you love beaches? Do you love stormwater? There's a lot going on, and some of the amounts, it's kind of breathtaking. So good luck with all that. But I do want to say, I know that Mayor Bruce loves pavement, loves good pavement, wants to put money in pavement. I like that about you, Bruce, because good pavement helps car drivers, it helps bikes, it helps walkers. I will say that the cars, the vehicles, are the ones that break up the pavement. When I'm riding my bike or walking, I'm pretty light on the pavement. But what I do want to encourage is that when we are doing more pavement, we get improved striping, we get more green paint, we get more red curbs. So invest in pavement, but maybe invest in some more paint as well. General mobility, improvements, 300K, safe routes to school, 200K. I personally would want those to go up $100,000 each for the annual amounts. I encourage you, it's wonderful that we have 4 HSIP grants from Caltrans. I just encourage you not to leave any of that grant money on the table. And I would also encourage you for projects already done, all the time invested, all the planning invested, all the implementation. Don't take anything out. Hold contractors accountable. Tri-Group did a horrible job on Santa Fe. You guys know this. I've said it many times. I think it'd be irresponsible for something that took so much time, effort, money, planning, to be short-sighted. I think it's functioning okay. I have other things to say, but basically, good luck.
Who's after Ellen? Okay, Teresa.
Good evening, Council. First of all, I wondered if there was any way, do we have a update on federal grant funds that have been withheld or impounded, or will we be able to hear that anytime soon? Secondly, more in the vein of policy or protocol, I'm not sure how we get to grants. Where are the grants coming from? How do we find them? Who chooses them? How do we pick which ones we're going to apply for? I'm hoping that there is some sort of standardized method in this process. And I bring that up because I was truly surprised some time ago when I saw the east side of the 101 walkway grant. And I was also surprised that we did not complete the grant for the encampment help from HCD because that was a lot of money. But I'm going to be specific about number P on the east side of the 101. In 5 years of fairly closely watching what's going on in the city, especially Cardiff and around the lagoon, I have never once heard anyone advocate for a sidewalk on the right side, east side of the 101, walking with traffic, not against traffic. I wonder if anyone ran this past the Lagoon Conservancy, because it doesn't seem like it would be a good thing that they would want to have happen, to have easy access to hop into the lagoon. And believe me, I see the guys, the kids all the time doing it. Plus, why would we want to have I can understand if we needed a little bit of ped path to get to the crosswalk, which should have happened back when the lagoon was done, but it didn't. But, you know, it needs to happen. But to have walking on the right side, when most people have asked for all the bollards and whatever to be removed for the bicycles, to now add pedestrians further to the right, falling down the embankment into the lagoon, I do not understand. Plus, why would we want to do that when they're going to get the Las Olas and then they're going to weave in and out around parking lots and driveways and then get to the other side of the Kraken where no walking on that side. So they're going to have to cross back over at Pacific Coast Grill to walk on the other side of the street. So we may have gotten the grant, but, you know, like Mr. O'Hara has said, and I don't agree with a lot of what he says, $200,000 is something we can use somewhere else, and maybe, thank you.
Following Teresa Beauchamp is Judy Burlfine, Jim Jaffe, and then Tony Kranz.
Good evening, Mayor Ehlers and council members. Welcome back, Joy. You have been missed. Teresa Beauchamp, Encinitas resident, 37 years, old Encinitas. Mayor Ehlers, I commend you for allowing extended time for council members to share their concerns and be educated by John Van Cleef at last week's meeting. You created a collaborative environment. I request that you do the same so residents can better understand the Infrastructure Task Force recommendations to fund infrastructure improvements. For over a year, volunteer residents worked with staff analyzing data and produced an unbiased rating system to prioritize the identified projects. The ITF determined that the only realistic way to generate the $15 million funding needed was to increase the sales tax. The three of you opposed this during campaign season, and Measure K was defeated. Many of us are anxious to learn where we will find that funding at this time, especially with the slashing of federal funding, $2.4 million for the Leucadia storm drainage project we just lost. Subsequently, 11 citizens volunteered to serve on the Affordable Housing Task Force. They had the hard and contentious conversations needed to create an unbiased rating system to prioritize potential affording housing locations. It is unfortunate that on this final budget workshop for this annual budget, we have yet to see this new council discuss these recommendations. We are noticing a pattern that suggests that council meeting agenda items are being prioritized seemingly because of the influence of anonymous Instagram accounts like Save Encinitas Now and Encinitas Keeping It Real. The L7 Parkland, Hygeia Roundabout, and attacks on the CRC are examples. These social media administrators block members with differing views. Please prioritize time for our task force's findings and recommendations to be heard. The volunteer members were civically engaged to find solutions. Your constituents want this education. As Mayor Ehlers has stated, we need diversity of opinions. That's how the magic occurs. Thank you.
Hello, Mayor and City Council, and Joy, thank you for joining us
so appreciate it. I'm Judy Burl-Fine. I want to express my support for your main goals, increasing law enforcement, improving pavement condition, and improving drainage. All of these support the overarching goals of preventing injury and death and supporting our residents and business owners. I support increased law enforcement of our current speed limits. As Mayor Ehlers shared with me, he's witnessed many car drivers running stop signs in Leeuwenhoek. I think we should have more law enforcement at night and in key locations. As Scott Campbell said, the problem is not street design, it's driver behavior. We need to step up DUI checks and hold restaurant and bar owners accountable for serving patrons who are unsafe to drive. We could also use a carrot approach by offering rideshare to bar patrons to discourage them from driving under the influence. Regarding pavement, let's prioritize improvements around new developments and ideally add important crosswalks and bike lanes at the same time as we are paving. If you know where to expect pedestrians and cyclists, there's less ambiguity for motorists. And let's focus on paving the most heavily traveled streets and save the cul-de-sacs with very little traffic for last. Let's be sure to allocate funding to slurry seal Santa Fe Drive so the partially completed project will function smoothly for cars and cyclists. Regarding drainage, let's continue the work that was initiated by the previous city council and previous mayor when the street was torn up for Leucadia Streetscape and add more large drainage pipes. I find it confusing that people often criticize Leucadia Streetscape at the same time that they encourage the city to improve our drainage. It makes a lot more sense to dig the road up only once. The first phase of Streetscape afforded us the possibility of adding drainage pipes while simultaneously adding sidewalks for pedestrians, bike lanes for cyclists, and additional parking to support Leucadia businesses. And please, our budget is limited. As I learned, we have now $7.5 million, no longer $8.5 million for CIP projects. According to the Coast News, we won't be receiving $2.4 million from the federal government to assist with drainage. We don't have any extra sales tax revenue that we might have had we passed the sales tax. So don't waste money removing the physical barriers on 101 that allow young and old to cycle safely to the beach. And don't waste money removing the infrastructure on Santa Fe. We need every penny we can find to carry out the above-mentioned projects. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Jim Jaffe. I am the co-lead of the Beach Preservation Committee of the San Diego County chapter of the Surfrider Foundation. We submitted a letter into the record regarding the crossing at 101 and the improvements along 101, the sidewalk, which was discussed. Let me just first start with the crossing, because it sounds like it's not very controversial. There's a permit right now. There's been a fence constructed there to deter crossing, even though it was a goal of that, the park that was built there, Harbaugh Trails, to have a crossing in that area. So now there's a deterrence from that. You've gotten the grant. I hope you'll go forward with it. It sounds like I'm going to have to come back again for another meeting where that's going to be discussed, if I understood finance director's comments on that, but we'll be here. And I think you should really go forward with that. It obviously is a safety issue. People are crossing there regardless of what you do. And it's good for beach access. It connects the lagoon to the beach there. There really is no way to safely cross in the region from Roberto's in Solana Beach all the way up to Las Olas. So it would be a great thing. The other thing we're concerned about is bicycles getting in and out of Seaside parking lot. There are some pictures I put in our letter that you can see people are trying to travel in the wrong direction on the southbound to avoid having to cross 101 to go north, either to come from Solana Beach into Seaside parking lot or exiting the parking lot to go north. So something needs to be done in conjunction with that, and that leads us to P, which is the other HSIP grant. If there's some way when you design the east sidewalk, you can integrate maybe some kind of narrowing of the lanes there, which makes things safer, which makes the crossing itself safer, because people coming down that hill are not going 30 miles an hour, which is what they're supposed to be doing. If there's anything we can do to slow traffic down and make it safer there, get the kids going to surf PE, the kids going to surf team practice, all the contests we have there, and community gathering of the Seaside Mob, as they're called, to have a safe way to get to and from the beach, crossing with their bicycles or as pedestrians to go northbound. That would be great. And we didn't put it in our letter, but we are definitely in support of the stairway maintenance and reconstruction to maintain access to the beach. Surfrider is all about beach access. That's why I'm speaking on items O and P as well, because these are things that improve beach access. And that should be something we do for all our residents and visitors. Thank you.
Good evening, Tony Kranz, and I live in Leucadia. And it's been kind of fun to address the council from this position. I did it for many, many years before I had the opportunity to sit up there for 12 years. It's difficult to do it on a clock, but I'm trying to get the hang of it. Last time I was here for budget workshop, I had a comment about how much easier it would be if Measure K had passed. I've brought a video I hope we can play. And then after this video plays, I'll add some
council had tried to put a 1 cent sales tax forth. I will say I would have agreed with it. I spoke to it. The one thing I did not agree about it is that it was going to the general fund and not specifically to infrastructure. Everything in this town, if you look at Station 1 down here, it's probably the microcosm, and the more that I've learned about our sewage lines, all of our water lines, our power lines, it's very, very indicative of the entire city. So I'm assuming we could look through the entire city if it was an inspection type capability for the whole city. We would probably see more issues along those lines. So I am an advocate for getting our infrastructure set after all these years and getting directed in that right direction. So I'll leave it there for right now.
It's great that you're an advocate for infrastructure. I made that a priority, as well as safety, and because infrastructure does add to safety. That was quite a word salad. And you know, there were some things that you said that I suggested that maybe you didn't fully understand, that tonight, as well as when you approve the budget, all that you're talking about right now is going to be from the general fund. So the sales tax revenue of approximately $15 million that would have gone into the general fund would have helped you. And just to be clear, the sewer, water, they have their own enterprise funds, so they don't come out of the general fund generally. So I think it's important to make clear that the sales tax measure would have helped for the budget process. A couple of quick things. I appreciate your efforts to do more paving. I would have done the same thing. I frankly think that the $5 million you're setting aside for stormwater, you should be more precise about that, and maybe $2 million of that, because it's not going to be ready for construction for a while, would go towards paving, and then you'd come back and backfill to do the construction of that project. I highly recommend that. Solar is not on your list, and that's unfortunate. I'd like to see it get on the list. You've got some big numbers that are TBD, which sucks. I see that the bridge repair for Leucadia Boulevard is lower. That's good. I'd love to hear the story of that. This is a list of $163,404,210, and Measure K would have really gone a long ways.
Mayor, that does conclude public speakers.
Okay, thank you. With that, we can go to deliberation. Deputy Mayor Lyons.
Yes, thank you. Oh,
Bear with me 1 minute. The city manager wants to finish up the presentation talking about the calculator.
Thank you very much, Mayor. So what we have tonight is we have the City Council and staff O&M request, which was the law enforcement, the consultants. We've got the administrative request, which is CalPERS payment and money in the unassigned fund balance. And then we talk about all of the capital and work projects for consideration. As noted before, right now, if you look at the top, there's 7.533453 for allocation. If you were to consider having all of those, it's obviously $8,890,800. So there's about $1.3 million that we'd be shy. So what we are looking for council tonight is we are looking for your input and your recommendations on where to spend that 7.3. So what we have here is we've got a calculator that will work in real time, and what we're looking for is at least 3 council members per item, because that's the majority. Please feel free that we have estimates. They could go up or down depending on what council would choose to do. But what we need to end up with at the end of the day is the little over $7.5 million, so that we don't go over the budget. So we are looking for consensus from council on these items. And again, you can choose to not fund them. You can choose to do more. You can choose to do less.
And just to remind me, the FEMA reimbursement, that's not included in that 7.5, so that would actually go and cover everything potentially. Okay.
And the items that are bolded, as I spoke of earlier, are either state mandated or to put us in compliance, or again, for the temporary fire station. So there's about 4 of them, as well as the park improvements, that we are definitely recommending that you fund.
Okay, and I would suggest we go through the council once and talk about whatever you want to talk about, and then we'll maybe take some shots at what we want to put in. So, Deputy Mayor Lyons.
Okay, we've got quite a lot to do here in 45 minutes. So what I want to say is it's great that we have more money as far as revenue, and that's really good news for us. I think there's a lot of great ideas here, so I support a lot of it. However, I think a couple things have gone a little bit too far as the reach, as far as the budget. So I'll be giving some thoughts on where we might notch down and be a little more realistic on a few things. There's also some things missing that I was surprised to see missing based on our goals that we set in our strategic planning. I'm going to call out a few of them, and I will want some staff feedback on a couple. The first is enhance. So this is our goal 1 and 0.5, revisit and enhance the homeless action plan. I don't see anything in here that directly goes to funding in addition, so I'm looking at the word enhance, in addition, more homeless action plan activities. And we've even lost 1 staff member without replacing that position. So I would like to get some feedback. I understand that we've talked about security detail. I don't know if there's an opportunity to look at security detail. I know we talked about it in terms of downtown. It would be something temporary. We've had a security detail before in Glen Park in my district, so I know how well that worked. And I don't see it on the list yet, so I want to kind of call that out and see if that's something that could be added to the list. And once I get done talking about what could be added, I'll talk about what might be less money. So is there someone who can respond to my question on that?
Yeah, so Deputy Mayor Lyons, we can certainly add, because again, we can certainly, you were not here for the first budget workshop, so we could certainly add. As far as enhancing, we're going to be bringing the Homeless Action Plan update on May 14th. Other ways that we can enhance that is through grants. We can do it through partnerships, things like that. So we're not taking away budget funding from certain programs. We are looking at reducing 1 FTE in that, as it really never got off the ground. And with the addition of the HOPE team, the second HOPE team, we find that is very useful as well. Plus, there's other services that we can utilize from the county in different contracts. So we may look to do that, not necessarily adding money, but looking to enhance through grant funding or different partnerships, how we can still serve our unhoused community here in Encinitas.
I think we have a history of doing some good things, and each year we've done a few more, and we've pushed the envelope, and we have some good data. I know it's a little premature in that you're saying we're going to have our review of the Homeless Action Plan May 14th. But that is still within the window of us talking about our budget. But it may be a little bit too late to really seriously consider what amount there might be that we should dedicate to in addition to our homeless action plan this year. And so I'm not really hearing that there's something specific. I'm wondering if the position we had, there was a budget associated with that. Perhaps that's a budget we can kind of have as a placeholder for a security detail, or Jennifer, do you have some suggestions on how to actually go through the process of securing this as a budget item?
So what we have done is, with that FTE, we moved that into being the deputy fire marshal. So we wanted to remain kind of net zero on FTE, and that helped to offset that. One of the things we have, and we talked about as one of the options, is the unrestricted fund balance. If there are things that maybe council thinks may come up, as Mayor Ellers has indicated in the past, we've had everything from $2 million. We did actually drop it down to $46,000 by one point. Yep, we did. So if council is looking at possibly maybe wanting to look at additional items, you could always up that unrestricted fund balance. It's general fund, which means you can use it for anything. As Director Gallup did indicate, we will end our fiscal year. We are always lucky enough that generally we usually bring in more revenue and our expenditures are less. So as you know, we do bring a mid-year update, also too, depending on what that FEMA reimbursement. So council will have another shot probably around mid-year if we want to do some additional funding for different things. Also, it'll give us a better idea of maybe how we're doing with the resources we have. But you are certainly more than welcome, again, that you can have that balance a bit bigger and use at your discretion. But we can also, if the safety item is something that Deputy Mayor Lyons wants to add, we could look at if council majority wanted to put some money in it in a certain amount, we can entertain that as well.
Which row is the unrestricted fund balance? Are you pointing to a specific row?
Number 29. So that would be your unassigned fund balance. Or you could add a safety line item if you'd like.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, my printout doesn't have row numbers, so. So that's 500,000. All right. So noted. Thank you. I think the unrestricted fund balance is probably the appropriate place for it until we have our meeting and define what specifically our budget needs are. And I'm happy to have called that out today as something that I think is really important. Kind of along the same lines is goal number 4 in our strategic planning. We talk about our Habitat Stewardship Program, and we talk about accelerating the expansion of the program. And I just want to call out that by funding only $100,000, we're not accelerating it, we're just keeping it level. I'm going to leave it at $100,000 because we have so many other objectives that we want to try to balance and achieve. Especially the Chamber of Commerce and some things that are coming up here. But I just want to call it out so we're really aware of what we're doing and what we're not doing. We're keeping it level. And let's see. 2 things that I just want to clarify that that are important. On our strategic goals, number 6, we talk about pursuing historic/arts districts. That is an item that probably in our dialogue in early March, or maybe it was late March, we've only got one item there, item A, that talks about the very important cultural districts under Assembly Bill 189. We may have overlooked adding a B to that, which is to pursue historic districts, which is a different piece of work than cultural districts. And so I want to make a note to staff and to my council colleagues that I would like to see a B being added to the 6.1 for an objective of pursuing historic districts And that goes right to item, and I don't know which row it is. Oh, yeah, there we are. 43, which is something that the staff has been working to put a budget together on for the last several months. So I just wanted to make sure that that was captured so that we can tie that request back to what our strategic objectives were. The other thing I'd like to mention is what a couple of the speakers talked about, and that's the infrastructure task force. When I first looked at our donut chart again, we call it lovingly our donut chart. It's a great chart, and I really do like it. It works really well, so I appreciate that staff is dogging this and getting it all sorted out. But we have such a powerful tool that we created in our infrastructure task force work. The community, the citizens, it's a citizens task force, spent a lot of time over a year working with staff and really honing what are the projects in infrastructure that our city needs. We really uncovered some things that were really important that we hadn't known before, and then they have to do with safety and security, and it was a useful document. Whether or not you think the rubric represents your priority list, I'm not so concerned with, but the fact that it's a valuable document, and I think it's one tool in our toolbox that we spent a lot of staff time and community time on. So having said that, I started to go through the process of trying to figure out, well, item list on our donut chart, number A, well, what priority was that in the infrastructure task force? Number B, which one was that? And I was thinking, well, maybe that's something we should all just use. It doesn't mean we have to follow what the rubric was, but it gives us more information that the city invested a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into putting together. It would be helpful to me. So I want to propose that the donut chart actually get another column that just says what the infrastructure task force thought about that project. And we can use that information or choose not to. I would like to add now back to what our job is right now. And it's this spreadsheet. So I would like to add the chamber's requests for the Visit Encinitas for $65,000 and for the chamber for $85,000 to our list. We have funded them in the past per their requests. They speak really knowledgeably about the value of their work to the revenue we have here at the city. I'd like to see them build even stronger programs. And the fact that we do have the economic development strategic plan on our list already, I think it really goes in concert with that. And I will prioritize projects as other people are talking. But I just want to throw out the idea that let me make sure I get this. I called it out earlier, the corrugated metal pipelining project. That I think could reasonably be funded at a level of $250,000 for the first year. I say that because it is a new project. We have some data that we're going to put together to figure out what our first phase would be. But we haven't even done that initial assessment of how much we can do the first year in the first phase. And then there's going to be design. So I'm thinking the first year of this 5-year plan might actually reasonably be somewhere under $250,000. So I'd like, Jill, maybe if you could give some input in that. If the first year is getting our ducks in a row, figuring out where the top priorities are, getting a consultant on board to do the design, to help us figure out what the first phase would cost, would the bulk of the money then be in construction after that?
Yeah, so the design that goes into a lining project is a much lower effort than it is for a brand new storm drain. So we wouldn't need, say, $250,000 to come up with a design. It would be pretty simple for staff to kind of just point out, hey, it's the pipes that are located here, here, and here are the specs. So we already have the specs. So any amount of money that you put towards corrugated metal pipe lining, we generally use 99% of it to line the actual pipes.
So I would like to suggest that we look at a $250 as for the first $250,000 for the first year to do the preliminary work associated with the design, to understand then how we will phase it over 5 years before we actually just reserve $1 million, not knowing we need it. I think we need it more immediately for other things. And so I would suggest that to my colleagues if they favor that. And when it comes to pavement rehab towards the bottom, I like the rehabilitation, as I think all my colleagues do, and a lot of the speakers do. Because we're tight on budget, I wonder if we look at that a little bit more conservatively for the increase this year. So we've got the $4.5 million that we already have. If we look at, because our budget's so tight, if we just look at increasing that by $500,000 for this first year, if that might be a positive move to get more pavement, but maybe spread our money out across our other needs a little bit better. So I'd like to suggest that as well. And I'll yield.
Councilmember O'Hara.
So I'll follow just with a couple of topics that are on the table real quickly. I definitely would look at pavement rehab, and I would be flexible on that amount of money. Of course, if we put $1 million in there and we decide we want to transfer money to a different place, it's still general fund money, we can do that if we need it. So nothing's set in stone when it comes to that. So I would be open negotiating that for sure. Corrugated metal pipeline, I think the $250,000 is not enough based on the research we have coming back to us as the extent of the need. And while we may find $1 million to be something that we can phase in, I think $250,000 is not enough. So I'm gonna look for other council members up here to come up with a number somewhere in between that, or a stand of why they think the $1 million is the number to hit. Regarding the chamber and the Visit Encinitas, well, how much did we give the 101s, the chamber and Visit Encinitas last year?
Chamber got 85,000, I think was that last year? What was the MOU?
I would ask Deputy City Manager Roy Spow to come up. He was in charge of those agreements. Thank you.
Yes, last year, $45,000 was given to the chamber for Visit Encinitas, and then $40,000 was for their normal chamber operations.
And what did we give to the 101s, and what are we giving the 101s this year?
This year, we believe we given $35,000.
And what did we give them last year?
Same, $35,000.
Okay, I'll circle back to that. I want to move to strategic plan objectives. 6.1, I'll support historic districts as long as we're talking about a historic district like Adam Weiner lives up in the Castro up in San Francisco. That is protected from all of the state mandates. So if that's what we're talking about, I am on board with that. If it's something else, I think it needs a little more explanation. I did find error in 6.1A. We had said we were going to take off by applying for the California Arts Council upon City Council approval. I think we just stopped at Bill 189. That was what was I remember hearing. If that's correct, or if someone wants to correct me if I'm wrong in the council, feel free to jump in on that one. Because I think we wanted to open it up that way. If we weren't able to get under Assembly Bill 189, we still had the flexibility to work with groups like the Chamber and other groups to establish a district regardless of qualification for Bill 189.
I could give some background. Did you want?
Was
that a question?
We already agreed, and I just want to make sure that I'm correct in what I'm saying. And if somebody feels contrary to what I just said, okay.
Yeah.
So please make that adjustment on the sheet.
What's the adjustment? I didn't understand.
So
He's talking on the goal sheet.
Yeah.
It's not a budget issue.
We will make that and
On
update it.
6.1, we had taken that part out to leave it flexible enough, should we not qualify. I just want to make sure that, I didn't want to be attached to that if it didn't fit us. Okay, moving to funds. Santa Fe, how much money will be left at this current time of all projects on Santa Fe, including Project G and H, that we can put towards any future thought on Santa Fe? I think that's a question for City Manager, for Tom.
I can get that number for you as you continue talking about other items.
Okay, thank you. And I'd also like to know if traffic mitigation fees, can they be used if there is any result, based on the results of the survey and discussion here at council and with staff, if there are changes made to Santa Fe, can we use traffic mitigation fees for that, or does that not qualify at that time?
We would have to go ahead and look to see exactly what the change is if it was qualified for a traffic mitigation fee. So depending on what comes up, we can definitely come up with any type of funding sources that could be used for any type of changes.
Okay, so for the moment, depending on the number we get back, I'm going to circle back to whether Santa Fe needs to be included in this, some money put aside. Whether it's added to the unassigned balance or whether it's just in the general fund and just earmarked for Santa Fe if needed. To Mr. Jaffe for coming up, and Ellen, Ellen, I guess rather, I couldn't agree with you more on item P. I think it is a sidewalk that not a lot of people are asking for. No one's looking, no one's using, and to this point, I've only seen one person ever walk on it, and it's a gentleman who picks up trash every morning and does his exercise, and we probably need to pull up here for a proclamation. He's an amazing guy. So I won't be pushing for that. I would say on item O, I'd like to see us discuss with Solana Beach if it's something that they are willing to pitch in on as part of the process. And then I would like to see us allocate money for the citywide rail corridor quiet zone and Leucadia at-grade rail crossings as part of our final amount, or at least keep that in mind as part of this. I know we will be, and I want to advocate for staff to apply for grants for that this fall. And I think we get into the discussion of does this sheet in front of us need to have a line? And I think it should have a line for acquisition of a grant writing or acquisition of a grant writing person or team. I would say that's probably a $200,000 investment.
Yeah.
Based on what I've learned.
And I think it's one of our goals too, right?
It is one of our goals, yeah. So I'd like to see that on there. Historic context statement. I'm trying to figure out what is $140,000 and what we're looking at there. And I don't know. It's on the budget calculator. And then when I look at $100,000 on the climate action plan and economic impact limitations, I know we've talked about the importance of having that information. I feel like that is something staff should be doing in the process of creating this climate action plan. And maybe I should have said that last week, but I really feel like $100,000 for something I feel like should be part of the climate action plan itself. I'm not so sure on that one. I do want to advocate for the Beach Street Open Space Public Recreation Trail. That is part of a public safety initiative for those residents there, as well as increase of better use of our open space. So I'm going to advocate for Beach Street to get $100,000 in here. had one more on here. Oh, and I'd like to see if there's money needed for design for Union Street and Clark Street improvements. If we need any funding for the design pieces for that, I would like to see that in here as well. And I'm not sure if we have an estimate from staff on that because it's a relatively new item.
We don't have particular estimates for Union and Clark. I do have some information for you on Santa Fe.
Okay.
So Santa Fe West, we have about $1.3 million left over on Santa Fe West. Santa Fe East, it depends on whether we rescope that project moving forward, but we'll have significant, we have $3 million in that project now. So
Great.
there could be some significant savings there.
Okay, and then the last thing before I yield, because I know there's a lot of topics on here, and I know it's under a grant, but I want to make sure that item K is moving forward. And that is the intersection El Camino Real and Santa Fe Drive. It's grant funded. I just want to make sure that it moves forward on this chart as well. And I'm gonna yield for the moment here.
Okay.
Bruce, I don't have my screen's down.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Just keep in mind, we've got 20 minutes
Okay.
left.
All right. Thanks, Bruce. Real quick, we've obviously, you can see the calculator, we're at 1.7 over the recommended. So from a cost cut, just to kind of brass tacks, I think that, sorry to do this to the employees, but the CalPERS, is there a way to cut that down to 250? The unassigned fund balance, is there a way to cut that to 250 as we have 2.4 million coming from the FEMA sometime mid-year? So 2.6, so that there is money that's coming to us. And are we pretty much guaranteed that it's coming this year, or is that? I get it.
In this day and
I know,
age,
I get it.
yeah.
I'm just, okay, all right.
2 years ago?
Whatever, okay.
3
Yeah,
years
yeah.
ago? Yeah, probably, pretty
right.
close. But right now, I wouldn't guarantee it.
The corrugated pipe, I know that we talked about the down to 250. I think at half of that. I don't know. I know that we want to get ahead of it, and we would want to get that infrastructure in. And then the pavement rehab with the 4.5 already there, if we just round that up to 5 million and cut that in half as well. So that immediately gets us back 1.5 of that 1.7 over the recommendations here. So there's still $200,000 to come back down. I liked the recommendations. I think that we're currently doing some research on Santa Fe and some of the possible lawsuits coming at us. So that 1.3, I think, needs to stay on the west side, but that 3 million on the east side, as we've seen some negative effects on the west side, I'd look to see if there's a way to reappropriate that in the near term and get us closer to some of the projects that we want to get further ahead of. Let me see here. I know we talked about the Leucadia storm drain and the quiet zones that want to get a portion of that pushed further, even though we're not going to be able to get it done all this year, but get a portion of that, possibly that 3 million on the Santa Fe East directed towards those other projects. So again, in the interest of time, I will pass it over to the next person that needs to talk.
Well, I really think that I would agree with Jim on the let's see here, on the corrugated pipelining. I think a little bit more would be adequate, but I definitely think that reducing that 1 million would be really helpful. I'd say maybe, I don't know if you're just gonna, I don't know, how do you throw a number out to that, but definitely not over 500,000, I don't think, but I guess. Anyways, I don't know how we could figure that one out, but let's see. So the ones in the bold, those are state mandated. We gotta do those, right?
Yes.
Okay. The paving as well. I agree with Luke on that 100%. reduce that. 500,000. So if we get 3, does that mean it passes, or how is this working on the
I mean,
calculator?
if 3 people support a certain, the staff will take what we're saying up here and coalesce that into a direction.
Okay.
Anything else?
No, I think that's.
Okay, I'll hop in. On the first one, I noticed we don't have a couple things on here. First would be the Leucadia flooding, and so we don't have any funding associated with that. We probably need to figure out how we're going to prioritize that and get that in here. I'm an advocate for, I call it the South Vulcan pipe, that would offload the nuisance drain that goes past the Basil Street and the alley and Leucadia Park, and that would really reduce our flooding threat and litigation, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of what I'm going to advocate for would be things that actually save us money by paying now. And so the second one I would go into is pavement. We've been paying about $4.5 million for construction management plus pavement per year. All that funding comes exclusively from dedicated sources such as HUTA, SB1, and of course Transcend is probably the largest portion. Many other municipalities that I've looked at augment that number. They realized long ago that it wasn't enough, and they augment that. When I've had discussions with Director Bankston about this, we're at 69 out of 100 in our pavement index, dropping, headed towards 65. We were at 73 and 74 7, 8, 9 years ago, right? So it's a steady decline. So the data is telling me exactly we are underfunding. So I've put the question to Director Bankston about the funding level, and to get up to our stated goal is 80. We've not been there, we're not going there anytime soon. My first goal is just to arrest the decline and get us at least flat and hopefully coming back up. And so that's where did the $1 million come from? I think the numbers, and if I get these wrong, pipe up and let me know. I think you told me we'd have to spend a total of about $10 million a year in order to get to 80, and that would take a decade to get there. Yeah, and that so that would be an additional 5.5 million, and so I'm only recommending $1 million extra per year in order to arrest the decline, see what happens, see how we can get ahead. And then I think in the future, we'll have to figure out, do we need to put 2 or 3 million in there, and maybe even more. So the $1 million is already greatly reduced from what probably we need, what other cities are doing. And so I use it as a placeholder. So that's pavement. I still would want to put $1 million in here this year. Let's talk storm drains. Storm drains are a little different than pavement. Pavement does cost more once it declines. Storm drains, once they collapse, they cost double to repair. And if you go back in the last 2 years, we spent $3.7 million. Now we're going to get hopefully 2.6 of that back, but we literally are going to spend 3.7 minus 2.6, 1.1 million on repairs that we had to do. That could happen again next year or a year after. So we could have several $1 million, $500,000 failures in here until we get the storm drains lined. Now the good news is, when in my discussions with Director Bankston, is that it cost us roughly $5 million, 4 point something, I think was the last number you gave me. And I chose $1 million a year to 5 years. Why? Because they are literally failing each year. And each year that goes by, we have more failures that are going to cost us more money. We have historically put $250,000 per year. I think we went 250 for several years, then we went to 500 my first year, and then we went to 0 the next year. So it's been 250,000 a year. But the majority of that is getting consumed with maintenance and not relining. So we actually have to have a sizable sum of money to go in and get that. And Jill, if you'd like to comment, I'd love to hear on those 2 items. Do you have anything that you'd add to that I missed?
No, nothing to add. Certainly, if we can catch a corrugated metal pipe and line it before it fails, that will certainly save us money.
And isn't a lot of it actually partially collapsing now, but it still can be lined? In other words, it's rusted around the water line, and it's dropping, and when it fails and collapses completely, you have to dig it up, twice the cost.
Yeah, and you can lose the road, so then you're impacting, our residents and people trying to drive on the road as well.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Well, how about, I think we're running low of time. You'll get it back.
No, just on this topic, I don't want to drift away from this topic, and I want to see if we can work this out here.
Oh, okay.
With the
Yeah.
solution. I'm sorry, I apologize for interrupting. The corrugated metal lining, is there a way to drop that down per some of the requests and take that money and put it so we get to that million? Is that something you'd be willing to do and something you could discuss with everybody?
Okay, I'm not sure what you mean.
So line items, we have corrugated metal pipelining. Deputy Mayor Lyons mentioned bring it to 250. I said I didn't think that was enough, but I don't know if we need $1 million. Can we take some of that money on this spreadsheet and transfer it down to get you to that $1 million? In other words, can we drop there? Are you okay with us dropping there if that's how we keep the $1 million in the pavement rehab? Or not the pavement, the
Storm drain.
Storm drain, sorry.
Which line item are you talking about on the sheet? Are you talking?
They're not numbered in ours, but it's corrugated metal pipelining project. I believe that was where, right, Deputy Mayor Lyons had mentioned dropping that number down. Maybe we could take from there, and use that money that she's suggesting we drop. Again, I don't know, I think that number that she suggested is too low, but if we could drop that number down and put that money into the area you want to keep at $1 million, I would be willing to do that.
Yeah, and I think you're going where I was going to go. I wanted to differentiate between down at the bottom of the list, second and third from the bottom, there's storm drain master plan for $450,000, and there's storm drain repair, $250,000. I think the storm drain repair is the historical number we've always had in there that rarely gets used for relining. And so, and I have heartburn about, I want to do a master plan, believe me. I have heartburn with putting almost as much money into a master plan as actually getting the work done when it's pretty obvious where and how easily the work could get done. So I'm trying to get started on the one. I would actually prefer today on this, I would take that $450,000, put it with $500,000 from the other one, and put it all in storm drain refurbishment, defer the master plan a year, and then come back to that. We're going to learn a lot just going through a quarter, a fifth, or whatever the $1 million covers. We're going to learn a lot going through the low-hanging fruit and seeing what operationally happens. I assume there's some videoing of the likely pipes we would do. So if we could somehow out of those three items come out with $1 million toward storm drain, even if it means putting off the master plan a year, I'm okay with that. We've gone without a master plan for 30 years. I think we can go one more year, but we do need to, those things are rusting while we talk, and I wanted more money doing things and less money planning things in that case.
Agree.
Okay, so it sounds, I'm seeing, well, let me keep.
So to do that, if you did that and you did $700,000 in the corrugated metal piping and you put that $450 in that other $300,000 in, that would get you your $1 million in storm drain repair.
Yeah, so basically $550 in the line item that was $1 million plus the $450 from the master plan. Delay the master plan 1 year. We'll come back and have that same discussion 1 year from now. Leave the $250 because we will spend $250 on storm drain repair because it's all collapsing. And that's a different bucket than relining. The idea is to get a good, solid start on relining and then keep it going next year. Let me keep moving in the interest of time here. We'll probably end up going beyond 6 because I think this is a pretty critical discussion. On the pavement, I think I made my argument. On flooding, we don't even show that here. And I know Leucadia flooding has the opportunity to be paid for substantially by grants, but the question I would have for staff is, what do I need to spend this year to start Leucadia flooding? And specifically, I'm looking for the South Vulcan infrastructure in order to offload the North 101 infrastructure. And so if that's something out of this budget workshop that I would look for help if I have agreement from other people. And then we can size that $5 million down to what we need for this fiscal year.
Correct. That'd be the right timing for it. Just before too long, I want to add in the Encinitas Adaptive Signal pilot program. It's a $500,000 cost, which I think it's needed. However, I do think that there'd be a place where if we just stayed in front of with a weekly update with Caltrans and make sure that we're at least keeping our signals on timing with that for another year while we can save that $500,000 and put that towards.
So say what do you want to do with that one?
Well, scratch it for this year.
Okay, that's what I thought you were saying.
Just update it weekly with an email or whatever it is we need to do to be in contact with Caltrans. I know they don't do it. Every 6 months is what we're doing right now. I think a monthly or a weekly would be a little bit more in tune with, like right now, they just did a bunch of work and our timing is off on La Costa and Encinitas Boulevard currently.
Yeah.
So that would be a quick fix if we just updated it versus an adaptive program. That's a $500,000
whole
right
new
now.
program.
Correct.
Okay.
If I could ask staff really quick, so what it sounds like if we can zero some of these out, so if you can zero out the adaptive signal, so it'll take off of the balance, if you could zero out the storm drain master plan, and we're actually okay with that as well. We just had some things that we heard, but we're okay with that. I had talked to Jill. And then also, can you please zero out the $100,000 that was for the climate action plan, because we did find further funding for that, so that'll come off of the balance, please.
So continuing on, I have the same kind of approach to quiet zone and at-grade crossings. We want to keep them moving forward as quickly as possible while also looking for funding. So what funding do I need in this fiscal year to move those, keep them moving forward at the fastest possible pace? I've always considered them fundamental infrastructure, and they need to be funded. So, but I think there's a little more granularity on those programs because of the time dependency with the federal government and with the train and North County Transit. I wanted to go back to the very beginning of the discussion and talk about the security detail. A little more refinement on that we talked about, and I think I've been thinking more about it. I think this is a place where the volunteer sheriff patrol may be able to help us. If that doesn't work, then I say we come back in a future, budget adjustment meeting, and we can look at using the same temporary type approach we did at, I think not only did we do it at Glen Park, but I believe we expanded it to Swami's for a little while.
We did Swami's as well as the community center.
And so that is a model we've used, and I was interested when I heard that even the CRC has to occasionally sanction certain bad actors and disallow them from coming temporarily to the food pantry. So I think we do have room here for discipline. I'd like to explore using the volunteer patrol as one option because I think it's a much lower cost and they are already trained and have liability insurance with us. I do support the Habitat Stewardship Program at $100,000. I would even I would look at another 50 or something, but I'll show solidarity here with Councilmember Lyons. And then the grant writing person is not showing up in here. And I think that is an area that we would end up getting more money back than before, and that's based on, I think, Councilmember O'Hara made a similar phone call that I did, talking to Davis and their model, and we have it, and I forget which objective, but it's one of our written objectives, is to enhance and improve our grant writing capability. So.
Mayor, one of the things I like too on that one is we recently had where it was $20,000 per grant that we just applied for with SANDAG. What I would actually like to do is I'd actually like to have staff go through their budgets to indicate where we already have grant writing services, because I think that I can find that 200 by looking through the contracts. So if you would give me a chance, I might be able to save us 200 by already culling through the O&M to see if we can already come up with that, because I know it's budgeted in different departments and we could put it all together.
Yeah, and I think our goal that we expressed as a group here was to come up with an overall strategy that would bring it all together and have everybody coordinated, and that may require some allocating of personnel in a way that we get a centralized grant writer, and we'll leave it to you for the budget. So beyond that, just in the interest of time, I'm trying to think I will actually yield at this point and give it over to or Deputy Mayor Lyons.
Yeah, thank you. I'll just wrap it up quickly because a few things were discussed or mentioned that I'd like to respond to. I want to start with the corrugated metal pipelining project. I stand by my initial thought that even if we put $1 million in that budget, I think all we're going to do is tie up that $1 million for a year instead of use it all in a year. So could staff come back then with more information on what are the first steps and what's the schedule for achieving that work, and maybe help me understand if we need $1 million the first year, then why? And if we don't, then I would feel confident just putting in the budget what we just need the first year. Because I still have a question about that it takes a bit to ramp up to the full construction budget need. And I'm not questioning the metal pipelining need. It's just I don't want to reserve money that's just sitting there. We could use it elsewhere. Mayor Ayler's overviews what our vast need is in infrastructure, and I think we all feel that. It's a painful thing, and we've tried to solve that problem with Measure K, and we're not there, so we don't have that. So I want to look at this budget from the perspective of I'm glad we have a little bit more money, but it's still not enough for our needs. And I think that's I don't want to put it all in pavement, and I don't want to put it all in fixing corrugated metal pipe. And so I want to balance it with the other needs across the city. So that's how I'll be looking at this. The second comment I have is, it was asked what the historic context statement is. Staff actually did a lot of research for the city council on what that $140,000 represents. We didn't have the time to go into that in detail today, but if there's a question about what the $140,000 represents, we can ask staff to profile that at the next meeting. Essentially, it's a first step in bringing our historic preservation regulated ordinance forward across the whole city. Right now, we just have the historic district in the downtown specific plan area. So I won't spend the time right now, but it is a first step to provide a framework for neighborhoods to define themselves as historic districts. And I've gotten a lot of support for that across not only residents, but in my district, I have a neighborhood who is chomping at the bit to do that, to create a historic district. So, and so we can provide more information on that. And otherwise, I like the comments that my council members put forward, the volunteer, sheriff. I just want to say, if we're kind of recording what we all support, I support all of these plus the zeroed out items. I know we've got a little more tweaking to do. I would bring the corrugated metal pipe down to $250,000, and also the pavement rehab to $500,000. But otherwise, and I would add the chamber's requests for $85,000 and $65,000. So if staff wants to record my thoughts on that, I'm not quite sure how you're doing that on this spreadsheet, but I wanted to be clear. Thank you. I'll yield.
Councilmember O'Hara.
Okay. So I guess on the historic context statement, the question really was, why can't we do that in-house? Seems to me like something we can produce ourselves. So that was the question.
We could, the data that could be presented could answer that question.
I agree. I still think we could do it ourselves. So I question whether we need that money.
Actually, we don't have the in-house expertise, and that's something that we evaluate every time we look at what needs to get done, and this is a specific specialist.
Seems like if we want to call something a historic district, we figure out what the definition that makes it historic is. We call it historic district. We base it on that. We put it in front of a lawyer, which we already have an in-house lawyer. Doesn't seem like we need $140,000 to do that, in my opinion. I think, we saw a similar option come up, and I want to dive into it, but it got into the question of whether we were going to do a agreed grant with AARP, and that was a lot of the discussion, was a lot of these things that we're putting out to the public for consultants, when maybe we would have the resources in here to do it ourselves and define it ourselves. And I think that's what I'm saying, is I'd like us to look at that. I would like us to look at projects like Streetscape, because I know I looked at other projects and I've discussed this. I would like to see us scrape down the cost of a lot of these items. I'd like to see us remove some of our landscaping pieces that seem a bit more elaborate than government needs to do, to save money, to put towards important projects that function and do what we need to do, which is provide public safety and functioning infrastructure before. A really nice landscape is great, but if it's sitting on top of a broken pipe, that doesn't really help us very much. So I would really like to dive into some of these, to open this budget up a little bit more. Things like Streetscape, which I do think there's probably money we could probably pull out of and put elsewhere. Some of the projects like we did at Santa Fe, I know can be top down. I know recently Hot Topic was the Hygeia Roundabout. We talked about taking $1.2 million of landscaping out of that. So I would love to, as part of this, because I think this is all relevant to itself, I would love for staff to look into these projects as to where items we can remove from them and cut off 5,000 here, 10,000 here, maybe 150,000 here, in one instance, $1 million. I would like to see us take that back and expand this $7.5 million, because I think we're one of the places where we're talking about what we're going to cut and what we're going to do on this list. It's what are the items that aren't on this list that we can cut. That's really what's missing from this conversation. So with that, I yield.
I agree, and real quick, because I don't have my computer's not working. I do want to advocate for the chamber and the Visit Encinitas to receive their total amounts of 85 and 65.
And just had a quick question on that 85, 65. Is that incremental and over and above previous allocations that we've given, or does that replace the previous 45,000 and whatever?
Total.
In other words, is that the incremental out of the general fund, or is that the total they're getting?
So the Visit Encinitas, the $65,000 would just be, so let me back up. Last year, we authorized $40,000 for the chamber and $45,000 for Visit Encinitas. That was a one-time allocation. So moving forward, we're budgeting $40,000 for the chamber, and we did not budget for Visit Encinitas. So should the council authorize the $65,000, that would be the maximum given for Visit Encinitas. And if you authorize the $85,000, that would be in addition to the $40,000.
In addition to the 40,000?
In addition to.
Whew. And so I would ask that the chamber come back with a budget that shows that we go forward with putting that in the budget, but when the budget hearing comes, I want to see where that money's going and how it's being committed. So
Agree.
Yeah, and
I see lots of nods up here with that.
I would like to have a reason to allocate that money. What I'm also struggling with in this, and I think it's important for us to figure out how to get that money to you, so justifying us giving it to you, because I think we all up here want to support this. I know I do. I've heard everyone say they want to give you the 85 and 65. That how is it going to be allocated, but also with our 101s, if we're keeping that amount the same, how do we justify increasing to the chamber and not to the 101s? And if we're going to treat everybody in that discussion equally, how do we resolve that?
Well, the major justification for me is that the chamber serves all of Encinitas, to whereas the 101s serve predominantly themselves down at the 101. So it's a very localized, where El Camino used to be at one point New Encinitas was a lifeblood and is inherently lost a significant amount. There's 1,200 doors operating on El Camino Real that is not being served right now. So I get that the 101 is the predominant spot for tourism, but it's also the predominant spot for most of the people living in Encinitas, I'd ask people here, when's the last time you went to El Camino to dine? And very few people do at this point, and it's missing a major part of our growth plan.
I think your point is absolutely correct as far as El Camino Real and the representation of the entire city, 100%. I think you're missing what the 101s do, and I think we have an item tonight on the board because of what the 101 did in Cardiff. We have an item. We've had several items on the board come to our attention because of the 101s, and while they serve different roles, and one is a larger umbrella than the other three, to your point, they're all vital, equally vital in this community because they microscope into areas that are very important, and the 101s and the chamber works collectively with them. And I know that is something that the chamber's doing a great job of. We're working collaboratively with those 101s. I just want to make sure that we are keeping them all fairly represented in this conversation. And that's my challenge. So how do we figure out how to keep them the same? Again, we've got multiple items coming across our agenda from the 101s. So they're clearly doing their job as well.
Yep.
And so we have to justify why we're increasing the amount to one of the organizations and not the others.
Again, it comes down to sheer size and location. When you're focused on one spot, there's a number of people that you're serving. Obviously, I think the 101s take a larger portion of our foot traffic right now, predominantly because that's where everybody's going. And really, El Camino's been kind of left in the dust for a while. So just to spread it out and bring it back to the east side of Cindy. And the chamber, I think, incorporates the entire city. So I think that they would deserve more.
So in the interest of time, I'm wondering, I wanted to ask staff and maybe the city manager, you've gotten a lot of feedback. We haven't gotten to what I would consider good consensus. I think there's some consensus in there. I have a couple more questions, but we could probably go easily another half hour to an hour.
Yeah, so thank you, Mayor. So here's what I'm thinking. We need at least one more workshop to finish up where we want council to direct the money. There's a couple more questions. Looks like we can do a little bit more follow-up. So what I'll need to do is talk with staff. I mean, the thing is we have to have an adopted budget before fiscal end, fiscal year. So that's June 25th is the latest date we could adopt a budget. And Tom's already looking at me like, I mean, we'd rather shoot maybe for the 18th. But so let me work with staff. We may need to do a special meeting to try to stay a little bit more on schedule, but that would be the only thing for that day. So we might be able to do that. So that would be my recommendation as well. Let's do one more workshop. We've already got this. We will tighten all of this up. We'll have everything deleted or added, and then we'll move introduction a bit and adoption, if that's okay with my Director of Finance, Mr. Gallup.
Yes, we could accommodate that.
Great. Okay, thank you.
I did have one question that I've forgotten. There's an item in here, contingency reserve of 20% of new operating expenditures. Is that one that we really need to have in there? Is there a policy that says that?
Yeah, our reserve policy requires that we set aside 20% of operating expenditures total. The budget did not include or factor in these requests, so that would represent 20% of that total.
That's why you programmed that in there, because that was such a big number. I'm like, wow, okay. So we will, I guess, close this. Is it a continuation? No, I can't do date certain, so.
Yeah, no, it's not a hearing. This was just a workshop. So we will just go ahead and reschedule a workshop.
Yeah, and I was thinking next time that I was trying to figure out how are we going to get to a closure here and kind of commonality. So at the end of the next meeting, I may ask you to do the following. Each with 3 minutes, which kind of matches what the challenge is in front of our audience, to summarize your top priorities when we get to the end of next time so that you hear it down the line. And the better we can get to using the checklist here and adding anything so we can basically almost get to votes. It's not really a vote, but it's a consensus. So think that way. We'll work heavily off of the worksheet, and that'll help staff get to a very clean consensus. So with that, we will adjourn this meeting, and we'll be back at 25 after, is that? Okay, 25 after.
I was going to say, I'm going to send that
to
you electronically so you can
Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking, I didn't want to say it.
No, I know, I was-
It's already
I was-
public, it's already public. so
I was
you
like,
guys
I
will-
was-